What's up, everybody? Isamu Sushi here. Happy Friday the 13th. Happy picking to everybody. Today, I'm hoping to show how I impression the key for my registered U.S. mail bag brass padlock. I was going to show you blanks to use, or at least some good ones to start with. You can see here they use a steel blank normally, and you can't impression a brass pins with steel because you're just going to ruin the inside of your lock, obviously. You can see I have one described right there to turn into steel eventually. Possibly. We'll see what happens with that. That's just a nail plate for construction purposes, so you don't accidentally put a nail through a water line that's going through your stud. And I was going to kind of explain where I went wrong. Hopefully you guys don't do the same thing. Um, Basically, all I used was a flat standard file with your edge cutting teeth. You may want to consider using just a flattening file without the side cutting teeth when you're milling down the key itself. What I recommend starting with is like your TR47 or your B80 type of blanks. Now, automotive blanks, if you look at these, basically, minus the blades out here, all we got to remove is the few high spots. Now they're essentially identical keys. The only difference is the bow of the key. I happen to have more B80s in stock, so I went with those. And you can see I marked with my permanent marker where I had to remove. So that high spot, and then obviously the keys get wider as it comes to the bow up here, and so you basically have got to take out that little bit right there too. Now that will eventually leave you with something like that there. How I accomplished that is first started with a notch right up here at the very top, and the reason I did that was to get my depth right, a good stopping point on my key on both sides, and to keep my thickness even on both sides so I didn't take out too much. On these keys, you don't have to quite take off that entire hump, almost the entire thing. You can see here, there's a teeny bit left. I never touched any of the nickel plating. And then here, I hit some of the nickel plating up here, but nothing down here. Yet the key will insert just fine. Now, normally when you impression a lock, obviously you're going to polish the top of this, file it clean. Oh, and I did give it a little bit better angle here. You can see these tips are a little bit too rounded. It's automotive. I gave it a bit more slant because this is just a single-sided cut. We only need the pins on the one side. That gives it a little bit smoother insert, and you're good to go. Now, if you're new to impressioning, normally they're going to tell you turn back and forth, tip. Oh, I shouldn't do it with that key. So you're going to turn back and forth, push up and down. Now, where I went wrong is right there. Rocking up and down is not good, and the reason being, there's no warding in this lock. There's nothing to prevent this thing from tipping all the way up and pushing all of my key pins up out of the way. And so when I did this one, you can see it doesn't turn. If I tip it or push down on the bow just a little bit, there, turns just fine. So I don't want to turn the counter over. It was 226 when I got it, picked it to 227. The first one worked to 228, and then I one more time unlocked it to put that on there. So anyway, that gives us to right here. So took another B80 blank, filed it down, smoothed out my top. Anybody new to impressioning, these keys have been stamped out of a sheet of brass and then milled and nickel plated. You need to clean that up. You're not going to be able to see what you're doing. Also, highly recommend permanent marker. After you clean it up, mark it with your permanent marker. Let that dry, and your pins are going to mark that permanent marker really well, especially on this where we can't rock it, we can only turn it back and forth and let it nick the tip. Also, really cheap nowadays, digital microscope. This one has its own light built in. You can turn to UV, you can snap pictures, but see, kind of hard to line everything up, but you can kind of see how well it'll zoom right in and give you a look at those pins. Hard to see with the contrast of the screens, but anyway, I hope that kind of gets you the point. If the pen doesn't work, you can always resort to some sort of microscope or magnifying glass. So once you get to this point, get your ink marked up there, and then we're going to insert it, and I'm going to make sure I'm holding it tight to the bottom and nice and flat. And then I'm just going to turn it back and forth. And that should mark the top of the key. And you can see one nick right there at the very tip. One, where is it? Oh, there it is right there. There's one right there. I scratched it with the file. And then there's one right there I can see. Scratched it with the file so I can see. And then the other one is right on the very tip of the key. And that's where I'm having to tip up. I think I took too much off of that tip, which means we're going to have to take almost nothing off of that. So I don't think I want to touch that tip at all. Now I did mark this one on the side because I'm going to mark it again. You can't really see it. So got a pin here. Mark your pins on the side so you can see them. And also it doesn't hurt to take a little square and scratch those in if needed so you know where the center of each of your pin is. And then when it comes to filing, I'm just using a Nicholson tapered round 0 file. And the reason I use the tapered is only to get it started. Once I've got the center started, I'm only using the solid round part to cut my notches in. You can see that'll give you a nice even wave on the key so your pins don't get bound up too bad. And sorry, I'm a little congested. So if I cough or sneeze, I do apologize. Sorry, I had to reset my file handle. Okay, so all I'm going to do is get the center of this pin marked. Okay, center of this one marked. Okay, now when you're doing this, you only want to go one way. Do not pull the file back. It'll leave ripples and marks in your metal and you won't be able to see the new marks. So I make sure I'm staying centered here. I'm just trying to get my notch started. Oh, I'm a little off. Okay, now really light pressure and just smooth them out once you get your notches started. Okay, so hard to see but I've got my notches started. I haven't done anything to the tip because I'm not sure I'm going to even have to. And then I've moved just very lightly in one direction, especially on the last few files. Get out my marker and I'm going to remark it. Stick it back in, rinse and repeat. Now, I'm really hoping this works and doesn't take too long. Holy cow, am I already at 10 minutes? Nobody's going to watch this stupid video. Okay, now I can definitely see my mark marking the tip. But I'm still hesitant to take some out of it. And then it looks like I'm rubbing on the left side of my channel for my middle pin. So I'm a little off center on that pin. Get a little bit better view of the grooves we're cutting. And I'm going to remark. And double check. Oh, that seemed weird. Okay, I think it's, oh, see, right there. We are way close. So it is just right there. It looks like I might just have to nick that tip a little bit. Let me just try to clean up these two. So very light pressure. I'm not doing hardly anything. Enough to clean it up. Take off the marker. Oh, maybe I do have to nick that tip right there. Okay, let me mark it. So we're going to mark the whole thing again, including the tip. Yeah, so it's rubbing the marker away in the center or on those pins, but it's not scratching a line. It is on that very first pin. Remember, I still want the file centered over the pin, so I'm taking a little bit more out of the back of the key. Then obviously the front's been angled already. Sorry about the runny nose. Okay, and there, I just rotated it to 230. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Back around. So needs a little bit of work. I might need to just touch it up just a hair, clean it up, and then I can always template this over to my steel and make one that looks more authentic and won't scratch up the inside while trying to make it. Obviously, make sure you deburr that really well. Your wet dry sandpaper is a lifesaver in these situations, especially to polish the top of your key. Whoa, sorry. So wet dry sandpaper gives you a good polish on the top of your key so you can see the marks better. So if you're having a hard time with the file, you can always wet dry sandpaper it just a little bit and then remark it and double check it. And that's all there is to it. That's how I made mine. Once again, that was the TR47 and the B80. Profiles seem to work the easiest for me. 15-minute video. I don't think anybody's going to watch the whole thing. If you did stay for the whole thing, thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you, whether you did or not. But if you did, kudos to you, man. Thanks, everybody. Love you all. Keep on picking.